Today's day is the 3rd of September 2019. I'm talking to Therese, Durkin, Clancy. Therese, sorry. Therese, Durkin, Clancy. Thanks very much for talking to me. Do you mind, like, a lot of people that know you, be familiar with you, like, but do you mind if we kind of get a bit of a backstory?
Of course,
first?
yeah, no problem.
Just where you came from and parents and stuff.
Yeah, and my mother and father were from Dara, County Leitrim, Straw, County Cavan. My mother's from the Cavan side of Dara, and my father was from Banadlera in Dara, County Leitrim. And my father was a qualified watchmaker. He trained down in Limerick. And anyway, he had set up in Drumshanbo, and anyway, he was advised by the local sergeant who was coming in and out to him that he was wasting his time there because my father was a softie. So when you came back to collect your watch and you couldn't pay for it, he'd say, sure, you know, pay me when you can.
Okay.
And he wasn't in for the money. Now he loved. He was very technical minded and fantastic with his hands and invented things, and you know,
Separate watches or?
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Yeah, he had a windmill in our back garden.
Wow.
Yeah, and he used to. How my mother met him was he used to be the local person for charging the batteries. Now I don't know what that entails, but you'd bring your big battery up. My mother used to cycle up to the house and get that, whatever process had to be done. Well, it was him that was doing it. Now he had left school at 10 or 11, like most people did that time. And you know, you had to.
You didn't need school before you advanced, like. So
yeah, well, exactly. So he was well able to like read physics books and things like that. And he had a couple of patents out on things as well.
Wow. So
that was a whole new, different side to him. But anyway, eventually he took heed at the sergeant, and they came up to Longford on a Sunday, and they he rented a place in Dublin Street in Longford, and he spent a year there. And then my mother and father got married in 57, and then Daddy had his eye on a place, Miss Laguerre in Main Street, in 70 Main Street. Miss Laguerre had a great reputation, and whatever, she sells cigarettes and sweets and stuff. And my father was smoking at the time, and he used to go and get his cigarette. And I presume they were being spare. There wasn't great supply of them. So if she liked you, she'd sell them to you, and if she didn't, she didn't.
She hadn't got them with you.
Yeah. So my father would be a very quiet man and that. Anyway, when he came to her selling, Daddy approached her, and she said she'd sell it to him even though he wasn't the highest bidder, because she liked him, to know that if you know, and it was, look, I'm sure
there's lots of history then.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's where it started. So my mother.
So was it like all jewelry or just watch?
At the beginning, you see, Daddy, I suppose, like obviously that was his thing, fixing the watches. Like, I mean, and he was a watchmaker, so he could make all the parts for watches and clocks. So he would have been a very quiet man, and my mother had been teaching and was much more outgoing. And exactly. So she, as such, took over the shop part. So they were only selling a few watches, I think, at the beginning, and sure, then the watches developed into something else. My mother certainly would have been a great businesswoman. And so my father did the back up, we'll say, and she was front of house, as they say, and it worked very well.
A great mix, like.
Yeah, a great mix is right, And I mean, she'd take the chance in business, whereas he'd be kind of thinking, now you don't buy anything until you have the money to pay for it. And
anybody creative at all, it seems to be tough on them, like to actually charge a price or something. That
exactly.
Very difficult. Like,
that's it. Indeed.
And then you were kids. How many kids?
Seven. Yeah. So I'm the third youngest, and so the first couple were born in Leitrim because it was, well, I suppose easier. There was someone to maybe mind or whatever. I'm not 100% sure, but the last four of us were born over the shop because that's where we lived.
Oh well.
Yeah.
You lived there as well?
We did. We lived there. We lived there up until 1976. And we moved out and bought a house up in Battery Road.
Right.
So
like you would have been running in and out of the shop
oh,
all the time,
look at I
keep quiet upstairs when the
well,
shop
exactly,
was open
and next door we over time we bought next door, so where your two is now.
Yeah.
And so Vera Brady's drapers were in the ground floor part.
Yeah.
So indeed, regularly, if we were running overhead, we'd get a message in from Vera Brady. She'd come in and she'd say, your children are annoying the customers.
Yeah.
So things like that. And I suppose, look, we'd a big back garden, but you know, when we'd be told don't be going outside the back wall, well, we did. And so basically, like most families on the street, there was nearly everybody lived over their premises.
It's not a thing now, but
no, and we played on the street, and you know, well, that time you left your hall door ajar, and you know, it was you know, a lovely lifestyle.
So you
and everybody knew
grew
each
up in
other.
the town, like?
We did, definitely, yes.
Yeah. You would have a lot of friends and you had a lot of people as well. Like,
yeah, well, definitely, and like my mother was well thought of, and definitely a lot of people would have said they didn't know my father because he was so quiet.
Yeah.
And but certainly, Mammy, people would come in, different people would come in, and there was a chair in the shop. That chair was always there. Sit down and have the chat. And she'll look at it's all growing up. As a result, you couldn't go and do anything out of the way without being told the message. You come back to the shop. I mean, go on. Oh, definitely, yes, very much so. And people, indeed, now we had a few robberies, and when we'd said the first one happened, people ended up coming in. They bought, everybody that came in, we'd say the day after it, they all bought something to support them. Like they knew there wouldn't be any such thing as you know, insurance at the time or anything like that, and really came together and supported them. And like would have been unbelievable the support we got. Wow. And I remember that so well, and you know, they were very grateful for it. But then I have to say that my mother, like her customers were her friends as well, you know, and you'd know about, you know, Mary was in Leaving Cert and Johnny was in whatever, you know, that people, you know, they cared for each other, but they had the time to chat as well. I don't know where my mother got as much time as she did to rear us all, but I suppose the plus was, like, when we go to national school, you came back and you had your dinner at 12:30 in the day. So my mother would have been running in out to the kitchen getting the dinner. We'd eat the dinner. Someone that invariably I'd be sent into the shop, and you know, the dishes had to be all washed up before you went back to school, and that was it, and that was the norm, you know.
But a good community spirit, like.
Oh yes.
Sounds like it. Like.
Yeah, and as I say, everybody knew each other.
Yeah.
Which I suppose was true. And you know, if Mammy had to get, we'd say, a new pair of shoes for any of us, we'd go down, you know, whether it be Cullen's beside us or Bob Killeen at the time, and you go down and get your shoes, bring them up and show them to Mammy. That's what you'd done. If Mammy needed a new jumper, over to Kenny's and bring over a few, and that's the way everybody done it.
Yeah.
You know, so
what schools did you go to then?
Like, we went to St. Joseph's National School. My brother went to St. Michael's, you know, after the first class they moved over. And then I suppose my mother felt education was very, very important, and she had to fight for her own education. And so it was decided 2 of my siblings wanted to become doctors. At the time we couldn't do the 3 science subjects or do honours maths in the convent. So they decided that we'd go to boarding school. So we did. We headed off to Ereshkigal College in Stephen's Green in Dublin.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. And my brother went to Clongowes, so.
And how did you find out, like...
well, I have to say,
tough,
I particularly, I was more a home bird rather than some of the rest of them. I was very lonesome, but then I suppose, look at, we met great friends in it, friends for life in it.
Yeah. But looking at kind of where you grew up though, like, would that kind of helped you, like, knowing everybody like around you, kind of growing up in the street almost? Dublin would be kind of the same.
The only thing about it that when you came home, people now wouldn't have meant any harm by it, but they didn't want to know you because, well, you were only going to be around a few weeks of the summer and you were going to be gone again, and as a result, like, I don't mean I lost a lot of friends, but I lost contact with them. And it was only when I come home in 81 after my leaving cert that I was determined to put myself back out there and
reconnect
is right, yeah. But you know, it took obviously some hard work, but well worth it. Yeah. That was the disadvantage of being away like that.
Yeah, that was horrible, like coming back, like, and having that.
Yeah, no.
And did you go to college or anything? Or?
I didn't. I was doing the secretarial course after my leaving cert in Loretta College in Croghan. And because, you know, they were all connected, that's the one I went to. And then that finished at Easter and I came home really not knowing what I was going to do. I always envy anybody that knows exactly what they want to do in life. And so I was in the shop for a while, and I used to always work every summer in the shop, every Christmas. Indeed, my mother kept me home from school after the 8th of December.
Over any dressing room, like?
Yeah. The first year I was sick, I used to get bad swollen glands, and after that was kind of the norm. Oh, we'll keep her at home after 8th of December because she needed the help and whatever. Yeah. But isn't it funny in hindsight, you know, she knew more than I knew, if you know what I mean, that I was more maybe of a business head than some of the rest of them. Yeah. You know, so look at anyway, I was learning even though I didn't know I was learning. So anyway, when I was in the shop for a few weeks after in 81, I decided, my accountant called to me one day, our accountant I should say, called to us one day and he offered me a job. So I worked in Killamid and Company for 4.5 years. So then I used to come up at lunchtime and do whatever messages need to be done, come up in the evening, tidy up and close up. And at that stage we were living at Battery Road. So I had, you know, grand little setup and I was the only one at home. But my mother had secondary cancer at that stage, so it was, you know, she needed a bit of help, support as well. And so that's the way it was.
So you became full-time then, was it?
Well, what happened was, I suppose I didn't, at the beginning I didn't think Longford was big enough for me or good enough for me. Yeah. And I thought, oh, I want to be in Dublin or whatever, I suppose, having been 5 years in boarding school in Dublin in it. But anyway, sure, look it, I settled in and I liked it. And anyway, I used to, because my mother had, you know, she'd obviously very low times in the she was, I think, 4 years with secondary cancer in her spine and her bones. And so my father used to ask me, you know, every so often to come and do the shop for a while. That was no problem. My boss was very good and let me do that. And my father then was diagnosed with cancer, and anyway, between the two, my mother obviously was getting worse, and my father asked me again in January 86 to come and do it for a few weeks till she got better. And unfortunately she went into St. Luke's at the beginning of February and she died on the 2nd of April. And at that stage my father was, I suppose, bad enough and he was lost without her, and he basically gave up. He took to the bed and he died a year or 2 months later.
So sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So look at, I mean, she was only 55 and but look at determined, like nobody really felt that she'd last as long as she did, but she was so determined, get us all through national service, get us all, because she got cancer at 38. So, you know, each step, the way, like, get them all through secondary school, get them all educated. My 2 sisters qualified as doctors. You know, I have a sister, well, she took early retirement from teaching last year. And my brother is like working in university over in Germany, in Berlin. And unfortunately I have 2 sisters deceased as well. So, you know, look at, it was, I fell into the shop basically. I didn't see myself being there. You know, for the year Daddy was sick after my mother died, we just carried on. I didn't know, it was 86 was a really bad recession. Stock had been, you know, let dwindle down because, I mean, it wasn't obviously, I was off the ball, I suppose. And didn't know whether they were coming or going. Anyway, it was decided then in the end that my brother was the only boy, and my daddy, being old fashioned, decided, well, you know, the son would have to more or less be the the main man, so he decided to give the shop to myself and my brother, and then so that was agreed upon, and he died in June 87, and there I was 32 years later.
Wow.
And no way did I ever see that coming. But you know, over the years I realised that, you know,
it sounds like it was made for you as well.
Yeah, well it was. I certainly had a good business head, and as I said, I was learning, even though I didn't know I was learning. And out of all of them, nobody else.
So your mother seen that, like
she's seen that. You see, oh no, there wasn't.
You pick up on things like the rest would be
exactly or interested in, and then it helped. Of course, I had the accountancy experience because she'd get me to do the back books and whatever, and all
most of it, isn't it? Most of the work.
This is it, you see, and at least then if you can, if you're good at the two, like I mean, obviously if you're good at the buying and the selling,
it's a great mix,
and if you do the book end of it and keep that up to date, I mean, that's a disaster if you don't keep it up. So you know, I would have always felt, well, you have to balance the books first. You know, you can't be going off and spending nilly-willy and without, you know, being able to pay your bills. So I suppose all that good combination.
Like it must be like for 32 years, like.
Well, I must have got something right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, indeed.
Like, there must be an awful lot of couples out there that wearing your rings or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, indeed. And it's lovely to see when you, like in my mother and father's time, we'd say the woman of the house mostly coming in. Then the next thing is you had her children coming in, and now their children was coming in. You know, so it was really lovely to see the the loyalty. Yeah. But I always maintained, if you looked after the customer, like they did come back to you, you know. And like
that lady previous to when you had the shop, like.
Yes,
you
indeed.
Know what I mean? Like your respect and
you
know.
Exactly.
That's a big thing, like.
You know, and sure, look at, I mean, and look, it doesn't cost an awful lot to be helpful and be friendly. And I certainly, hand on heart, I wouldn't have sold something to somebody if I didn't think it was right. You know, and I suppose I had a good eye for the buy-in too. You know, I mean, obviously I made mistakes. Oh my God, like the first few years, you'd be kind of inclined. It was very male orientated, and you know, the male reps would kind of be pushing things at you, and of course I'd be kind of thinking this line I'd hear, oh, your mother bought it, and okay, it wasn't resting easy with me, but then through time I thought, well, you know what, I mean, you know,
put your feet down,
if you can't pay for one to come back, if you haven't it sold, sure, what's the point in having it, you know? So like I certainly learned, you know, and I was willing to learn.
You started to train before the trend happened with women.
Yeah, indeed, that's true. Yeah, indeed.
And like, did you have many exotic people that came, or from far, who came from the furthest, another country, or
as customers in the shop? Well, certainly I would have had a good mix of different countries, but I suppose prominently America, well, Canada, Australia, and I would have obviously people that emigrated from our own town out there coming in to me when they come home, because they'd like to go back. There was one man in particular who used to come home to see his mother, and every time he came in to me, came home, he had to buy something to bring back to the wife, because she was, you know, so excited, was coming from Longford, you know. And his mother, like, had got Alzheimer's, but she was always a great customer of ours. So it just, there was something special about that it was, you know. And it was great when you had the time. Over the years, you had the time to chat to people and get to know them. So it wasn't a matter of get in the customer, sell them the thing, and get the money.
That seems to be the thing now. Is you're kind of sadly missed. You know what I mean? That kind of,
you know,
simple
the personal
kind.
And like, and that's what I missed the last couple of years of trading, was that it was so busy doing maybe so much paperwork inside. I never seemed to be able to catch up. The workload got bigger and bigger and bigger, and for all sorts of reasons, but paperwork being a big part of it. And I missed the fact that if I was chatting to you, I'd be thinking, oh God, he doesn't realise all the work I have to do inside. And I just felt it was nearly a mountain, and you nearly, what's the point in, you throw your hands up in the air nearly in the end and said I'll leave it. But then that meant that you were doing it here at night and your day off, and then I won't do it on a Sunday, and then it was a Sunday, and it just...
And what was that? What was it like? Just...
Well, when you do any brands, you get an awful lot of extra work with them.
Now, you're almost doing a double kind of accounting for them as well as for the shop.
That's exactly it. I mean, I wouldn't have realised, you know, like, it's lovely going down the brand route, but there's a huge amount of work, and to keep it and whatever, you have to obviously do what they ask you to do. So it meant staying, my daughter had the Leaving Cert done, she was going to college, and that's where as such the rot came in for me, because I didn't have to run home in the evening to get dinner or whatever. So I'd stay on in the shop, and I had to sort out, you had so much regulations about displaying these brands that, you know, you could only do it when you were closed in the evening.
Oh.
And so the next thing is, like, you're going home a couple of late nights in the week.
Yeah, that's too much. Like, they made a mountain for you, like, to do, like, as you said.
Yes, yeah.
Red tape, you have to have presented a certain way, like.
Exactly. And then they would have sales a couple of times a year. You had to, oh my God, like, you got reams of paperwork, as in the products that had to go on sale, and what was that 70% off, what was 50% off, or whatever. So you had to put in so much work to them, like, and they were the ones that got paid first.
They were not doing much. They were sitting there.
No, you were promoting their
them,
brands.
like,
exactly. Now, of course, it was bringing in people. It wasn't just bringing in people from Longford.
Yeah.
It ended up bringing people in from all counties, and in the end, you see, again, they were told, we'd said that brand wasn't from Ireland, so they were obviously calling the shots from another country, and they were saying to the agent in Ireland, well, you know, we only want, we'd say, 30 shops anymore, and cut out all the dead wood and whatever. So then I had to go up a stage with it, and it meant you had to, I don't know how many times I revamped the shop for them, you know, so that was more work. And the expense of it. But if you wanted to keep the product, that's what you had to do, you know. And of course, I was keen to keep it. It meant then that Leitrim lost it, Cavan lost it, Mullingar lost it, Monaghan lost it. And that meant those people were coming into Longford. Well, several business people told me afterwards that when that went from me 2 years before I closed, that it meant those people didn't come back into Longford. And when they came into Longford, they didn't just come to me to buy part of it. They said, well, right, gosh, we'll have our lunch out, or we'll have the coffee, or we'll have the whatever. And when they were there, they definitely spent more money. So that all fizzled out as well.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely detriment to the town, like, I know here.
They get you to build it up, and then when it's going hunky-dory, and they had the figures for me every week, they knew exactly what you were doing. And you, there was, as I said just now, everything, there was great backup, but at a price.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you saw a few reasons as well, like, you know, like, I suppose online would be another one.
Oh, online was a disaster, and what I used to find was, oh right, okay, you don't have it, well, and maybe on a Saturday particularly. Well, right, I'll ring on Monday morning for you, and I would bend over backwards, and then when you'd ring them back to say I have it and I'll have it tomorrow, oh no, it's all right, we got it online, or maybe go off to Liffey Valley on the Sunday, that was no problem to them. So you couldn't compete online.
Your hand was forced, like, there was lots of different things, like.
And a lot of those companies, you know, like, as I say, it's lovely doing brands and it brings the people in, but then what a lot of them done, they started their own online it's a business.
It
started taking away from shops, and naturally enough, you couldn't compete with that. But they didn't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know, they're short-sighted.
Just
really.
pure money people, like it sounds like. There's nothing at all.
No. But like, isn't it easier to run a business from a website and not
sitting
bother?
home, like, and
you don't have to pay rent or rates. No, I didn't have to pay rent, but rates or pay staff or anything like that. And like, I had a few robberies back in 2008. I had a fella come in with a hammer and broke cabinets, and
when the shop was open, like?
Yeah, just on a November evening, and it was just 5 minutes closing time, and was traumatised. It took me at least 6 months to get over it, and
was himself there? You had no security?
No, I hadn't, and that's exactly why Andy decided to come in, because he said, well, look, the whole reason was because there was 2 women there on their own, and you could see your man afterwards on the camera outside hovering around waiting for his time.
You got him, you seen his face, like?
Yeah, well, he just had his 2 eyes showing like the rest, but he was never got. So, like, I mean,
people that know that, like, they'd be going around looking for spots, like,
yeah, well, exactly.
This is a good spot, like, or whatever.
So Andy was like farm at the time, and he decided, well, look at here, well, he was getting a bit burnt out, but I suppose, and he came in. But like,
this your partner, you got?
No, we were. Pardon me.
This your partner? You got married then?
Yeah. We got married in '86. Actually, we were to get married a few weeks after my mother died, and we put it off for 6 months because it was obviously wasn't whatever.
So like he's farming background then, like.
He's Metrotown and oh my God, farmed from like, he didn't want to go to school at all, farming mad, and so look at it, it just suited grand, and there's no way you could have paid someone to come in and do the kind of hours he was doing, and you felt a lot of peace of mind, to be honest with you. It was great, and but that's the way.
Yeah. I know. What do you spend your time doing? The garden now?
Yeah, my gardening, and I like my DIY, as you can see, hanging up things around the place.
Beautiful.
And I like me walking as well, and we're really living now, to be honest with you, because in the meantime, as I say, my old sister Maura died in 2001 at 43. And my sister Bernie died in 2011 at 46. And, I was getting health problems. I was stress related, I suppose. And I was exhausted all the time. And I'm grinding my teeth at night. And
constant stress with all
it was a constant stress. And I just thought, my mother and father had done 30 years and I'd done 32. And I just decided, like, our daughter Katie, we wanted the one, she had finished her college, and I thought, well, why not go, and it was a big decision, of course. Well, exactly, and live. And so I contacted my other siblings in case that, better known as being that it was a family business, and they all said, well, why not grab it with both hands, because they felt they had done it long enough. And, it wasn't the same as it used to be, but, people, they're still loyalty there and all that, but I don't know, but online definitely, I think, was the tin hat, and then even Cameron closing, that was a massive loss to any town. That was 170 jobs, and that was at the same time as I lost that big brand. And it just really was. There was a
community, there was the barracks, and there was a roll.
Well, exactly, there was, exactly. Slowly. And I mean, like, it's only a town. Nobody can, that was enormous to lose. Like, absolutely colossal. It had an awful bad effect, because at the time I was doing like a group sort of discount schemes, so like Abbott and Cameron and the prison service and social welfare and all those were getting discount when they come in, working with those. And I mean, that was fantastic, because when anybody was leaving or in social welfare, if they weren't even moving from different sections to another, they come in and bought their present. And like that was, you know, major business to me. So Cameron...
It's a knock-on effect, isn't it? The wave, like, you know what I mean? It's not just affecting that one person, it's the wave. It's the whole community, like.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But you're enjoying life now,
Well, I don't know myself. I feel like the stress definitely is lifted, and you know, our daughter's in Japan working, and we were able to go over and not come back thinking all the work I have to catch up on, and you know, you'd be worried. You never really settled when you went anywhere because you've thought, oh gosh,
in the back of your mind, it's always there. I have to
that's
do
right. I hope they're safe. You know.
Yeah.
And
that's a great experience. You know, some place I look forward to yourself.
Oh, it's lovely.
Tokyo, is it? Right?
No, she in Nara, which is about 3.5 hours from Tokyo. It's in the Midlands. Oh, it's west of Tokyo.
Would that be kind of a parish kind of thing, or would
it would be? Yeah. Well, it's a city in Nara, and it used to be. There's a deer
sanctuary.
Yeah, they're roaming around the streets, and they're sacred. Yeah.
I've seen a photo story on something. Like that, where and pictures like you see them in street scenes. And
you do, indeed, and it's just. Well, my daughter's she's working for the governor of the city of Nara. And the office is across the road from the deer park. And she said the amount of tourists they get, well, they're not annoying them, but you can buy biscuity things to feed them. And of course they're getting all overexcited, and they've been poked a few times. And she's be stopped to ask, you know, where would they get medical attention or whatever. But she loves it there, so she does. So she's a year and a bit there now, but it was lovely to go over and see her. And you know, look, when you only have the one, like you'd miss her and that. So she's going to come home at Christmas for 2 weeks.
Very good.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. Well, thanks very much for talking to me. Telling me your story. That was brilliant. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Michael. Thank you.